So we're going to get to U.S. politics now. Joining us live now with more is presidential historian and professor Allan Lichtman. Allan, thank you so much for joining us. I know you've been watching closely, of course, as always, what is happening in New York. And while grand juries, they don't have to indict Trump, it is unusual for them to not proceed with an indictment. I know I'm asking you to look into a bit of a crystal ball here, but what do you think is going to happen?
Well, I have no inside information, but I certainly think an indictment of Donald Trump is extremely likely, not just in New York. I think he's likely also to be indicted in Georgia for tampering with the election and a host of other crimes. I think he's also likely to be indicted by the Department of Justice for mishandling official documents that don't belong to him, that he stole, that he admitted he stole, said, these are mine when they're not, for obstructing justice, and quite possibly for inciting a coup against the peaceful transfer of government that resulted in a breach of the Capitol and many injuries and a few related deaths. He has not just one sword of Damocles hanging over his head, but multiple swords.
When we take a look at one of the issues here, the hush money payment of $130,000 to adult film star Stormy Daniels, the grand jury, would they not have to determine that this resulted in some kind of benefit to the president and to deter any potential campaign interference? Because the position of former President Donald Trump is, like many people, you have a legal dispute, you settle it. It's a nuisance, and you settle it, outside of court. Would the grand jury then have to determine that yes, there was some kind of influence?
Well, let's back up for a second. Yeah, he had an absolute right to pay hush money, although, as immoral as that may be, the whole notion that Republicans are the party of personal responsibility and personal morality is absolutely gone. And they're embracing this guy who is the opposite of personal responsibility and personal morality, always blaming someone else for his own actions. But let's back up here. While it may not be illegal to pay hush money, we know from what facts are already available that he falsified business records, making it out to be as though this was a business legal expense. That is a crime. That is illegal. It may be a misdemeanor, but it's still a crime. To make it a felony, then, you got to link it to an illegal campaign contribution. And I think the case is very, very strong there. He's never paid off anyone else outside of a campaign context. He's even bragged about assaulting women, bragged about chasing married women, bragged about his affairs. It makes no sense that this was irrelevant to his presidential campaign.
Allan, if there is, if the indictment moves forward, if President Trump is charged, does this embolden his base? Or, for some Trump supporters who are very loyal, do they lose a bit of steam here?
I'm going to read you a quotation. We cannot have one law for the ruler and another law for the ruled. If that understanding is lost or eroded, the American democratic experiment and freedom it guarantees is in jeopardy. You may think that's a quote from a Democrat or a progressive today supporting the indictment of Donald Trump. It's not. It is a quote from the impeachment of Bill Clinton, who was charged also with committing crimes and covering up an affair. The quote is from Republican Congressman Henry Hyde, one of the most influential Republicans in Washington in the 1990s. In other words, Republicans were singing a very different tune when it came to Bill Clinton as opposed to Donald Trump today, who's a former president. Bill Clinton was a sitting president. I think, when some of that hypocrisy is revealed, maybe an indictment might bolster his strongest supporters who don't need bolstering anyway, but it's certainly not going to help him if he gets the nomination in a general election where he's got to expand beyond his core base. It's also a sad commentary on at least part of our country that an indictment of someone for a crime should be considered a political benefit. And let's not forget, this is just the first of the many dominoes that I think are going to fall.
Allan, you know, that quote, this is why we appreciate your analysis. I mean, because of the history you bring to your analysis in terms of your expertise. Thank you so much, Allan Lichtman, and we will, of course, chat further. Thank you.